What is going on, guys? Today I want to go through a couple sleepers that I think could fall in the draft. Not really fall, but definitely aren't going to be drafted highly, and I think could make a big impact in year one of their NFL careers. Just as someone like this guy, Puka Nakua, did this past season. Now, I'm not saying any of these guys are going to break rookie records and be one of the best receivers in the league, but they definitely have some big upside. So, without further ado, let's get into the first guy on this 10 draft sleepers list. Okay, number one on our list is going to be Mike Sainristil, cornerback out of Michigan. He's gotten a lot. He's gotten a lot of hype as the draft has gotten closer. But at the end of the day, this guy probably won't be picked over, 6 or 7 cornerbacks for sure. But I think a lot of NFL GMs are really gonna like this guy's motor. Guys, the Washington receiver, I think it was Jalen Polk, said this guy was the hardest player he played against all year. And he played in a pretty competitive Pac-12 conference this year. So he talked about the knowledge that he had and how he was calling out plays before they were happening. It really seems like Sanders still has a really good idea of what's going on in the game. It seems like he studies and he understands what's going to be happening before it happens. And as far as coverage skills goes, he's not the most incredible, but he's a very good tackler for his size, and he just has a really good nose for the ball. So, first guy on the list, Mike Sainristil. I think he's going to be really great. Okay, so the next guy I have on my list is Ray Davis, running back out of Kentucky. He's got one of the best stories in the draft. He grew up homeless with 14 siblings. He's dealt with a lot. He has handled a lot of adversity. Started his career out at Temple, then transferred to Vanderbilt, and then fifth-year senior at Kentucky. Now this guy has a lot of strengths. He's 5'8", so that might be a little knock because of his power running style. People are probably going to say that he doesn't have that top end speed that you might need as a running back. But there's really no denying that he has a lot of the tangibles that you want out of a running back. He has really good vision, and he is a good pass catcher as well, which is going to turn on a lot of NFL offenses. I think he fits in good with a team like the Chargers, who just lost Austin Eckler. But in a class where there isn't a lot of good running back talent, especially top end talent, Ray Davis is probably going to fall mostly because I think he's already 23, which is running backs career timelines don't really follow the same trajectory as other positions, and in a time where NFL offenses pass more than ever, running backs aren't really seen in the same way as a top end receiver like Marvin Harrison or Malik Nabers. But I think Ray Davis will fall mostly because of his size and his play style. But I think what he lacks in that department, he makes up for in vision and pass catching ability. So yeah, look for Ray Davis to make a big impact in year one. All right, next guy up on the list is Temple's Jordan McGee. This guy has been very aggressive throughout his career. He's a very good tackler. He's really good in run defense. He has shown some weaknesses in pass coverages, but he demonstrates a good knowledge of zones in zone coverage. But the bottom line is he has got a really good nose for the ball. I think last year he was PFF's third best linebacker in the country, maybe fourth best, behind I think Adrian Cooper, maybe Peyton Wilson. But this guy is not really getting a ton of love in the NFL draft, and I think it is mostly because he's a little more slender for a linebacker. I expect him to put on some weight and be a very underrated draft prospect come April. Next man on the list, Dallin Holker. I just love this guy. He just plays with a lot of aggressiveness. He's got really strong hands, and he can also block well. The Colorado State Ram is, it's a draft where there isn't a lot of tight end talent. Last year we had a lot of guys who could have easily been first round draft picks. And this year, Brock Powers obviously, maybe Jatavion Sanders. If a team really likes him, they might reach. But in this draft cycle, the tight ends really aren't getting a lot of love. But this guy has shown a really good demonstration of, his ability as a pass catcher and also a run blocker. And I think in the right situation, he could be a really, really solid starter in the NFL. So the next guy I really dug deep into the bag of the quarterback pool this year, Kedon Slovis, is a guy who, he doesn't jump out as a super athletic quarterback, a super big quarterback in terms of size. He's quite average in terms of height, weight, hand size, arm length, pretty much all of the above. But what he does do is, he has the arm strength to make, the intermediate level throws. He excels off of play action. He makes really good throws across the middle. He demonstrates some very good anticipation on hook routes, slants. I think I'm not going to say he's going to be this super talented starting quarterback, but we could see him be like a Gardner Minshew, or I don't know, if in the right situation, maybe like Kirk Cousins in 10 years. But I think the quarterback class that he's in is pretty unfair to him. Maybe top 10 this year, could be top 5 another year. I'm not saying he should be a first round draft pick ever, especially with the way his career panned out in college. But he's a very solid quarterback, and I think he'll be a really good backup in the NFL. And, with the right situation, obviously, like any backup quarterback, he could get an opportunity and get paid, It happened with Brock Osweiler. Dak Prescott came into a situation as a 4th round draft pick, and Tony Romo got hurt, and Dak obviously has become one of the better quarterbacks in the league now. So I don't expect him to be that good, but he's a very talented quarterback. He has a really good understanding of pro style offenses, coming from BYU, and I think if he finds the right fit on offense, he could be very good. If he gets to start ever. Now jumping right off of Kedon Slovis, this is a guy that he played against this year. Tyler Owens from Texas Tech, the safety. Listen, he is about as perfect size and athleticism as you can get, but he lacks the experience to be a really talented safety coming out of this draft. I think he's only started 10 or 12 games in his collegiate career, and although he reads the quarterback really well on zone coverages, he makes a lot of mental mistakes. He is definitely a project, but that the intangibles that he has provide a really, really good foundation to have a really good player in a few years. But he struggles in certain plays. He lacks the awareness due to a lack of experience, most likely. But he has the ability to be a very good safety, and he tested incredibly at the combine, 99th percentile in pretty much anything he did. And at 6'3", I think he came in at around 215, I want to say. He's going to be a great player. It's just a matter of when he will be a great player. Here's another great example of a guy who improved his stock a ton at the combine. Testing is one of the best centers in combine history. Tanner Bortolini out of Wisconsin. Got to show the offensive lineman some love. This guy is a very, very athletic center, most comparable to the likes of, Jason Kelce, who had very similar scores. I can't remember which drill it was, but Bortolini shattered one of Kelce's combine records by over a tenth of a second. There are some obvious strengths to Bortolini's games. Like a lot of Wisconsin offensive linemen, he can move from center to guard pretty easily, which a lot of teams like that positional flexibility. And he has very good awareness in pass blocking when it comes to help on other sides of the line, and he picks up blitzes really well. So I'm excited to see kind of where he ends up. A lot of teams have center and guard as a positional need. So I'm really hoping he gets a good situation where he gets to start year one. I could obviously, in the perfect world, he gets a starting job right away, and he excels to the point where he might even see an all-pro within his first 3 or 4 years. But we've seen that the relative athleticism score of his, and with guards and centers, it's a very good indicator of how good they are actually going to be. And it seems like this guy could actually be quite a fantastic player in the NFL. Okay, Isaac Guerendo's the next on the list, running back out of Louisville. In terms of pure athleticism, this guy is just off the charts for his size. He packs a lot of weight into his frame, but he does not lose any speed. He is one of the most explosive running backs in this draft class. And I think whoever gets him gets a really good change of pace back. He can run with power and speed. Although his game isn't quite polished, he has a ton of potential with his athleticism. I think he would excel most in a kind of running back by committee role. Obviously, he's not a super talented running back in terms of skill. So I think that change of pace back role will be really good for him, at least at the start of his career. Finding someone who is an older running back who might need less of a role in their offense. A guy who doesn't need as many touches as he's been getting. Someone like Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry come to mind. So just finding a good situation is going to be really important for him. Obviously, it's not really up to him in the NFL draft. But I could see a lot of potential out of him in the next few years. I think he'll probably be running back 2 for at least the first few years of his career. But obviously, his development is going to be really important for whoever gets drafted or whoever drafts him. For the sheer amount of sleeper tight ends in this draft, it's interesting that they're not getting as much hype as I think they should be. And Theo Johnson is another really good example of that. Penn State always has good tight ends. It seems like every Big Ten team in general, they pump out good tight ends every year, like we've seen. Iowa with George Kittle, Noah Fant, Penn State, Mike Gesicki, Theo Johnson, maybe. Wisconsin just had Barry Alvarez's grandson. And now it seems like Theo Johnson could be another Big Ten tight end who's the real deal. Tested as one of the, I think it was like the number 2 or 3 best tight end combine of all time. In terms of his on the field skills, he obviously after the catch will have the intangibles with that athleticism of his. But he's not a super good blocker. He's more of a receiver. And kind of see it's hard to use a tight end when he can't block. But, you know, in the right situation, I've been saying a lot this video, there will be teams that know how to use him. Big, like the one team that comes to mind, the one coach I think would be really good for him, would be Mike McDaniel. The guy knows how to use players. You know, it's nowadays the way offenses are. It's less about, you know, position, and it's more about the player. And you kind of see that in college now too. Coaches are kind of starting to use or build the offenses around the players instead of the other way around. And you've seen that with Mike McDaniel. He's kind of built his offense around speed, which is Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Raheem Mostert, Devon Achane, and I think Theo Johnson would fit right in there with them. So I'm excited to see where Theo ends up. But you know, if he gets in the right offense, he could be a really big threat for NFL defenses. All right, my very last guy on the list. I really wanted to dig deep for this one. Hayden Hatton from Idaho. He was an FCS transfer. These are some of his highlights from the FCS. You know, the profile on him is a very stereotypical one. He has really good hands, really good tracking skills, a really good awareness. You know, he lacks the athleticism that you'd like in an NFL receiver, but he's a good route runner. He's really good down the field. He transitions very quickly from a receiver to a runner once he gets the ball in his hands. So you like him in, you know, screens. You like him in bubbles. You like him quick routes over the field, crossers. But he can also be used down the field due to his, you know, above average ability tracking the ball and adjusting to the ball in the air. I think this guy might be wide receiver 35 in the class. Just something absolutely stupid. But this guy could easily be on the field in the NFL. He's got the hands to do it. It's just about, you know, is the team willing to take a chance on him? And can he make those adjustments to the next level? Like, we see it a lot with these kind of receivers, if you catch my drift. They're not the most athletic, but they're really good at the little things. So it's just, will he be good enough at the little things to give him a shot in the NFL? I like him. I think he could be a really good player. He doesn't have the exposure to really give him the hype that other players have. But I'd say in terms of wide receivers, he could be, you know, a top 4 wide receiver in the draft. So, all right, there you have my top 10 draft sleepers of this draft cycle. There's a lot of guys that I didn't get to, obviously. And I'm probably going to miss on a lot of these. I'm probably going to hit on, you know, 1 or 2, but in the grand scheme of things, it's part of the NFL draft. There's always guys who just, you don't see it coming. They just don't have what you think needs to be what they need, and they just make it work. And maybe it's the mentality, the mental strength that they have, but we see it every year. There's going to be people who surprise us, and maybe some of these guys will do that. So please like, comment, and subscribe, because I know when you don't, and I'll come and find you. So yeah.